Welcome aboard the Athletics Can't Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets with Tim McMaster, Zach Rosenblatt, and Marissa Dunn.
Can't wait.
We are back. Thanks for joining the Can't Wait podcast. Tim McMaster here along with Zach Rosenblatt. He covers the Jets for The Athletic. We are getting you ready for the Jets and the Texans on Sunday. And we're going to get some help in this episode. DJ Bien-Aime, former Jets beat writer, briefly Jets beat writer, is now covering the Texans, has been for the last couple of years. And he's going to come on the show to talk a little bit about this game, CJ Stroud, Zach Wilson, because he also covered Zach Wilson during his rookie campaign. So that should be a lot of fun having him on. Also, we're continuing. The holidays are upon us here, a couple more weeks in the year, and we are continuing our push for 5-star reviews on Apple. So if you're checking us out on Apple, or if you're not, but you have the Apple app, just give us 5 stars. Then you can say nice thing. We prefer nice things, but funny things, whatever you want to say. With a 5-star review, the best of those reviews we will read at the end of the year. And Zach, when we first started this, we had a slew of reviews quickly. It slowed down a little bit, so we need to get things going a little bit here as we get closer to the end of the year. Some news came out over the course of this week. We recorded. People probably remember if you're watching us, if you're watching the stream, we recorded on Monday. And we kind of ended it a little short. I think it ended up being like 38 minutes or something like that, because Zach, you had to go do some reporting. And obviously part of that story was the story about Zach Wilson. It's been a crazy week for you. Anything to add about that report and everything that was going on?
Yeah, it was, obviously everybody who's listening knows about it. I'm not going to be naive. Diana and I have had definitely a crazy week in a lot of ways. I'm not going to go into I've been on both, between the two of us, we've been on all these different radio shows talking about the report and everything that came with it. And I don't really want to go into how the sausage was made. But I'll just say, I know there's some anger about the report, and all I'll say is we stand by everything reported still. I think it's important to note that all the people that have come out to either deny it or talk around it and not deny it had to do that for a reason, because this made them look bad. So I get the intrigue around how or why people would tell us this or whatever, but ultimately we decided it was news that the number 2 overall pick was reluctant to play, and so we reported on that, and we stick with our sourcing. We had it vetted, confirmed by people both high up in the organization and just whatever, and different levels of the organization. So I just wanted to say that out of the gate so we can actually talk about Jet stuff. But it's been a weird week. I went on Dan Patrick's show, which I think Dan Patrick's a legend, and he's really good at asking questions. It really threw me.
He's better than me, Zach. He's better than me.
No, you're the best. He has the Howard. He has the Howard Stern style though, where he kind of just he just says something and he somehow just gets you to he's like, oh man, I feel like I'm gonna reveal things about myself here without even meaning to. That's just how he's just very good. And Diana, she was on Dan Le Batard today, who she has a history with, obviously. But it's been, crazier week for the Jets than for me. I'm not asking for any sympathy or anything. There has been some anger on social media, but that comes with the job. I don't really take that much offense to that. But ultimately, we stand by everything in there. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
No, that's fine. And you said it. You had multiple sources and all that stuff. And, Salah denied it, obviously. Zach denied it. But that's going to happen. What are they going to do? Come out and admit it once it's out there? Of course not. But the fact is, Zach is going to play. We don't know what went into, from that report to whether there was pep talk. Supposedly he talked to Aaron Rodgers, but he is going to take the field, which I think, as two people with a podcast, that's probably the best scenario right now in this season, because we saw Tim Boyle, we saw Trevor Siemian. I don't need to see that again, at least with Zach. And as bad as he's played, and obviously the numbers show it, he's at the bottom of the league as far as quarterbacks this season. But the fact is, he's got a rocket arm, he's athletic, and he has the potential to make big things happen and to get you excited during a football game. We see little glimpses of it along the way with the negative play that he's had. And now we're in a position where this team, there's no chance of the playoffs for the Jets. There's a good chance. I'll leave it a good chance. Zach's not back with the team next year. Whatever they say is definite, but there's a good chance he's not back with this team. So why not just go out there and sling it, right? There's nothing to lose in this game. I feel like he's already been benched last year. He's been benched this year. So, and it seemed like from what he said this week, that's maybe his mindset a little bit. I know he used the word smart in there as well, but like, I would love to see him just drop back and just start firing Pat. And I think they should let him throw the ball around.
Yeah, that's kind of been the message this week. They want him to let it rip, but they spent all of last year talking about how they wanted him to be more boring.
Yeah.
And now then they let him be boring at the beginning of this year, and nothing was happening. So I don't know. Like, I think we've seen when Zach is playing loose is when he's at his best, and a lot of times that's not in the beginning of the game for whatever reason. He's tight. He's scared to make the throws that are there. He doesn't see them. And then as the game goes on and the defense give him more space and they're maybe doing some more no huddle, that's when he's at his best. Like, we've talked about this stuff all in the beginning of the year when we were criticizing them was because they weren't letting him throw down the field and stuff like that. So I think why they knew they had to go back to him was last week when Tim Boyle in particular was in there. There was, as we talked about earlier in the week, like there was so many plays, especially with Garrett Wilson, where he was down the field, he was open, and they were not delivering him the ball. They weren't even looking his way, and it was a really bad look because the opportunities were there and they didn't take them. Like we criticized Hackett a lot. I think a lot of it's earned, but he was calling plays that had guys open, and the Jets did not have quarterbacks willing to make those throws. Will Zach be willing to make those throws? Like, there's evidence that like a lot of times he's not. I think we know he can. We know he physically can, and when he does, like he has the arm. Yeah, it's kind of like if again the parallels to last season like it just like gives me a headache. But like when he was benched last year, they didn't expect him to play again, and 3 weeks later, they bench him. They said we're going to reset his footwork. We're going to completely start from scratch with him. 3 weeks later, he's starting again, and all the questions were like, how can you say that he improved his footwork in 3 weeks? And Saleh had to play the coach speak thing, and yeah, we do, and this, and this, and clearly that was not the case. And like, can we be sure that in 2 weeks Zach has built up the confidence again, where he can air it out and let it rip and all that stuff? Like, I don't know. I mean, we're gonna find that out pretty quick on Sunday. It's another one of those things that I've been saying, like, until we see it, like, why should we believe it? And I know there was a lot of fans like, oh, everything's Zach fault, whenever Tim Boyle would be bad or anything was going wrong in the last couple of weeks. And the point from the beginning was that no, not everything is Zach's fault, but he also has not been good. Like that is also a fact. So they were one of the worst offenses in the league before they benched Zach Wilson. It's not like they were good with him, which people seem to leave that part out. Like the offense was a disaster. So, I think there's a few things that we need to look out for because Wes Schweitzer's not going to play at guard, so there's going to be another version of this offensive line. Breece Hall is questionable. I imagine he'll play, but Jason Brownlee's out, so you're going to see more Lazard again. So there's the supporting cast is still like going up and down. The Texans have some talent on defense. They have a guy in Derek Stingley who we'll talk about with DJ in a bit, who's been very, very good lately. I think he had 2 picks last week. It's a challenge, and it's a defense that maybe he sees this defense in practice, so maybe that would help him because it's the same defense, like scheme wise. But yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence that's going to go on Sunday, but I don't think it could be much worse than it was last week against the Falcons, I would say.
Saleh, I mean, he's in a tough spot, obviously, but I thought his quote this week was interesting. He said, we always believed Zach was the best quarterback in terms of giving us a chance to win. Tim and Trevor trying to spark the offense and all that. And those two are very talented quarterbacks. Both, don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, Zach gives us the best chance to win. He uses the term spark, which is exactly the same word he used earlier this season when talking about why they weren't benching Zach, when he said, just benching someone to look for a spark isn't something I believe in. Coaches have to say a lot of things over the course of the season, and we obviously track all of it, but it's exactly the opposite thing as what he said like a month ago.
I mean, look, he's saying these things in a podium where it's being recorded, so it's our right to like point out when he contradicts himself, and he's done that here. Like that is a fact. And he's used the spark terminology in the past. He used the same thing when they explained why he was playing Chris Trevor last year, and why he went to Mike White and all this stuff. Like It's okay to say you're doing something for a spark. The spark didn't ignite, like it didn't work here. So they're going back to Zack maybe quicker than I would have predicted. I mean, as I thought Zack was never going to start again for this team when he got benched. I guess I
You didn't know
underestimated.
how bad Boyle and Simeon were going to play, though.
That's what I was about to say. Like, I underestimated the mediocrity that was behind him, which kind of goes back to why they had never benched him before that, clearly. But also goes back to, we've said it a million times. It's cliche at this point, but this is what they get for not bringing in anybody. Like, this is what happened. So, we were talking before the pod, like they brought in Brett Ripien. And as you said, like the irony of the fact that Brett Ripien was available because he got cut for Carson Wentz, who the Rams went out and got when the Jets could have went out and got him. So the quarterback thing is going to be the story of this season ultimately. I mean, I imagine that Rodgers is not coming back if he's being truthful about the playoff thing, but you never know with Rodgers. So that's where we're at, as always.
The Wentz thing is fast because it's a name we've obviously talked about since before the start of the season, right? I think he came up in training camp that here's one of the guys that could have possibly been extra depth behind Aaron Rodgers. And here you are signing Ripien, who was released to make way for Carson Wentz. It's fascinating. And it's just they're random transactions, but it just looks bad. And like back to real quick, and DJ is going to join us here in a second. Back to Saleh. I actually believe in the spark thing, right? Like I think that's legit. You can put somebody new out there and you can get a spark. So I'm actually less critical of that comments about him putting them in to get a spark, and more critical of the past comments when he said there was no reason to do that, because I think.
Well, and he said it defiantly the last time too. He's like, I don't believe in making a move just to make a move, and a spark and all that stuff. So ultimately, coaches say a lot. I think that's why you see some coaches who say nothing all the time, like Daboll and Belichick and guys like that, because then you can't throw it back in their face. When I covered the Giants, like Dave Gettleman would famously saying things all the time. And towards the end of his tenure, my old coworker Daryl and I basically went through all his most ridiculous quotes. Where he did the keyboard thing, making fun of the analytics people, and then compare it to what actually happened and stuff like that. And it did pretty well, because it was these guys are at the podium and it's their responsibility to say the right things. It's not my job to not point it out when they don't. So,
all right, let's bring in DJ. Hey, DJ.
What's up, DJ?
DJ Bien-Aime. He used to report on the New York Jets in 2021, DJ?
Yeah, 2021 off season, and then 2022 off season. Then at the end of mini camp, that's when I departed to go to ESPN.
The ESPN now reporting on these Houston Texans. So you're in an interesting spot as far as this game goes.
Yeah.
And that's we'll get to a lot of stuff, but you witnessed Zach Wilson's rookie season, a number 2 overall pick. You're now witnessing CJ Stroud's rookie season, a number 2 overall pick. Obviously they've gone vastly different, but as a reporter, what was the approach of the teams any different in your mind? Or is CJ Stroud, was he just better prepared for the moment to step into the NFL and be an effective quarterback?
I think it's a little bit of both. The Texans actually made him fight for his starting job. They made him compete, because he didn't get named a starter. He was the last starter to be named. He was in a battle with Davis Mills, but obviously probably through the second week of camp, it was clear that he was going to win the job. He was taking a majority of the reps, but they didn't give him that title. They really made him go earn it. Obviously with Zach, from day one, he was a starter. Granted, his only two competition was Mike White and James Morgan, who neither had played in the NFL game. But that's probably one of the bigger differences. And Saleh in 2021 was way more complimentary of Zach in the media, was always oh yeah, no, this is our guy, this is our starter, da da da. Whereas DeMeco was always saying CJ's doing a good job. He's currently in a quarterback competition, and he would keep it very coy. He's progressing, things like that. He was a lot more coy compared to Saleh, where Saleh was just wrapping his arms around him. And I'm not saying that DeMeco wasn't doing that behind the scenes, but he was not doing that with the media. So that was one big difference that I noticed in that regard. I also think that while there is some similarities with former San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinators, pass game coordinator to be the OC, all of them first years. The difference is the Jets they had a lot more young guys surrounding Zach, right? You had Elijah Mount Carter. You had on the offensive line, you had Mekhi Becton, who ended up getting hurt that year, but you had Elijah Berry Tucker. So there wasn't as many veterans around him. At tight end, it was basically like just plug and play anybody. I think Kenny Yeboah got some snaps. I know Ryan Griffin was there. With the Texans, you have Robert Woods, who's a legitimate vet. You have Dalton Schultz, who's a legitimate vet. The whole O-line outside of like the center/guard spot, these guys have played a lot of NFL football. Larry Tunsil, obviously, he came in the league in 2016. George Fant's been around a while. Shaq Griffin's been around. Titus Howard's been around. So he had some veterans around him to help him from a pass protection standpoint. And then the receiver spot, when you have Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz, that those are more veterans that understand the game. Yeah, you still have some kids and Nico and Tank, but they're all being brought up and taught through around a lot of these veterans. So I think that's kind of the difference is it's less young around CJ, which only helps him. But then again, I think CJ just sees it better in terms of defenses and understanding the structure of the offense. And again, he's really poised when things break down around him. He doesn't necessarily panic, which you kind of saw that with Zach as a rookie. Once it broke down, he would try to scramble, make things happen. But then like he clearly didn't learn that, or he wasn't learning early on that he wasn't the athlete that he was in college going against the guys he went against in BYU, which he has a better understanding of that. But I would say all those things are kind of why it's been vastly different.
I'm curious. So Jeff Ulbrich was talking a lot about that poise yesterday. He's like, I've never seen a rookie with that much poise right away. Was there a moment from when you started covering CJ that you realized he might be like this special? Like, was it when the season came around, or did you see it in camp, kind of thing?
So yeah, I would say like early in camp, I remember I used to text some of my other reporter friends like, I don't know, man, CJ ain't looking too hot. But then, because he wasn't getting into the rhythm because like they were legitimately like one series Davis, one series CJ. But then like it was a Saturday practice where the ball barely hit the ground and everything was within structure. Whatever I almost said Michael Floyd, whatever Bobby Slowick asked him to do, he did. And he did within the structure. And like I said, the ball barely hit the ground. It was the first time, all the fans were there. But because it's funny, like I remember going on Rich's podcast and we're talking about that same practice, and it's kind of comparable to Zach's first fan practice where a bunch of fans were there, where they both like Zach had the big down the field throw to Elijah Moore. Fans went crazy. Y'all saying we got a franchise guy. So CJ didn't have one of those moments, but they're both practices were similar in the sense of like you kind of saw the ability, but then CJ built on it, right? Even his first preseason game, yeah, he had the interception and it looked kind of wonky. But the Miami practice, the joint practices, you could see a lot of him making some really good throws, creating off script at times, still staying poised. And then that game, you started to see like some of the nuanced quarterback stuff. And then when I was like, all right, he has it, it was the Saints preseason game. He only went 2 for 4, 1 touchdown, 16 yards. But you could see a lot of the pinpoint accuracy where it was like, okay, this guy has what it takes. And then obviously, by game 2, when he threw for like 384, the second most passing yards for quarterback 21 or younger, that's when I was like, yeah, this guy has it.
So the Jets, I think, have scored 4 touchdowns in the last like 88 possessions or like something. Or I forget what the number is. Something crazy. So what's it like covering an offense that is like prolific? Because I haven't seen that all year.
Yeah, man. I would say it prevents you from writing for us, we got to write takeaways right after the game. But for the sake of discussion, it prevents you from writing your game story early. I'll say that. Prevents you writing your game story early because you just never know, right? Like the Tampa Bay Bucks game, like there was like 40 seconds left. They're down by 4. They go down and score a touchdown within like 5 plays, right? Or like against the Bengals where they're up, but then it's tied in a blink of an eye. You're like, well, do they have an offense to where, I think they can go down and score. So it prevents you from writing about they went to overtime. You got to wait until the game's really done. So I would say when you have a prolific offense, it for sure never lets you think that the team's out of the game.
Yeah. What
I know that.
I know. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, I had kind of one more on Stroud, which is, they've played some good teams, obviously, this year. It's good defenses. Steelers, Patriots defense has been good, Ravens. But you think this is by far the biggest challenge he's faced as far as the defense?
It'd probably tied with the Ravens. The Ravens was obviously phenomenal, but that was CJ's first start. So, you kind of just throw that away a little bit. I would say since that game, I would say yes, it's probably the biggest challenge. I think Jets match up very well with the Texans, right? Because in reality, the teams have given the Jets the most problem, teams that can efficiently run the ball. Because we all know if you just drop back and throw against this defense, it's gonna be a long day, right? Like, good luck. Only guy that legitimately had success being able to drop back and throw the whole day was Dak. That is it, right? Even Josh Allen, his game was still like he had a couple big plays, but in reality, like Dak was way more precise, was able to dissect play after play after play, where every other quarterback was Mahomes, Tua, Jalen, Josh's first game, doesn't matter who else. They've all even Justin Herbert, yeah, they scored 27, but like he threw for like under 150 yards or something like that. It was a nasty number. So if with this game, they haven't been able to run the ball effectively the whole year. They've had like 3-4 good games where they've been able to run the ball, but besides that, it's all been a struggle bus. And if they can't run the ball without Tank Dell, if you just put it on CJ's shoulders, this is the wrong defense to do that against. And this is gonna be a really good test to see how fast CJ can see a potential problem and try to prevent that. One potential problem is he's been extending very well recently. Since week 9, passer rate of 104, 3 touchdowns, and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. When he extends for plays 4 seconds or longer, the Jets against quarterbacks who extend 4 seconds or longer, passer rate of 34. And obviously, Mahomes, Josh, Jalen, all through 2 interceptions when they held the ball for 2.5 seconds or longer. Again, most of CJ's damage this year. He has 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions where he throws the ball. He holds it for 2.5 or longer seconds. So he's been effective the entire year when he's been able to hold the ball and create. So this is the wrong team to kind of do that. So it's going to be like strength for strength. But obviously, I'm going to lean towards the Jets defense being able to, if he's living in that world, to really have success against them because, like, even the Jacksonville game, he threw for 300-something yards. I think he had 3 total touchdowns. But his time to throw was like 3.8. And that game, they struggled to gain any rhythm, which is why they only ended up with 21 points and ended up losing that game because you just can't live in the backyard football life.
Yeah, that's a great point. So on the other side of the ball, Derek Stingley and Sauce was obviously it was a discussion last year. I know you were getting shit from Jet fans for a while, but it seems like Stingley's kind of like paid you back for that praise because he's been very good, obviously lately. But
he's paid you back.
What do you think about? What does he do well, and what do you think about Sauce versus? They're both very different players, obviously. But what do you think about those two, like in comparison to each other?
Well, everybody knows I like Stingley better from a talent perspective. But I will have to admit, for now, Sauce has won that argument for now. Yeah. I would say that you're right. They are very different corners. Because Stingley at the line of scrimmage isn't necessarily the guy that wants to like get all physical with you. He kind of wants to read what you're doing and kind of squeeze the spacing and just stay on your hip so you can make a play on the ball. Where Sauce is a lot more physical at the line of scrimmage, where he wants to just completely erase you so the quarterback doesn't throw it his way. Where Stingley, I don't want to say he's baiting guys because he's not at that point yet where he can truly bait guys the way Revis could bait guys, or people in that realm. But he has some of the best ball skills I've seen from cornerback. Like he's in that like Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Deion Sanders, Marcus Peters type of Champ Bailey type of ball skills where they could play receiver like in short sports, Patrick Peterson, in short spurts because they have such good ball skills. So that's what I would say is the unique difference between the two, right? They're obviously very talented corners. They both have very bright futures in this league. Sauce has already been all pro. Stingley just is vastly different in the ball skill aspect and how they play at the line of scrimmage. I think both of them are really good when they're in trail technique, off technique, because you could tell they really trust their long speed. So they'll sit on a lot of stuff, at the top of the route, get a little bit physical, and then when they, to disrupt the receiver at the top of the route, because they are very comfortable with their long speed and the twitchiness on those quick out or in breaking routes. So there's a similarity there, but the line of scrimmage is vastly different in the sense of like how they're going to attack their receivers.
Yeah, and I feel like that Sauce is, you could argue, is the biggest knock against him right now. He doesn't really make those plays on the ball. but the ball doesn't get thrown to him very much, I guess. So I guess that's
right.
But you obviously have a few former Jets on the Texans. George Fant, Sheldon Rankins, Adrian Amos now, but Blake Cashman's the most interesting one to me because you know what his history was in New York. He was always getting hurt. But what's it been like kind of seeing him break out the way he has this year?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember just talking to him a bunch last year. Just just getting to know him, things of that nature. Telling him I covered him in New York. So we've always built that type of bond. I actually want to try to write a story on him after the season. Seeing him break out, I think a lot of it stems from the fact that he knows this system, having played with Saleh, played under Saleh, and DeMeco Saleh run the exact same scheme. So he had the terminology was easy for him to pick up. Again, he was in a lot of those meetings, just learning like the X's and O's back in 2021. So here he plays very fast, mainly because he knows what DeMeco wants based off of scheme tendency. But one thing that he told me a while back, probably like last month, the biggest change is like him, like mentally, right? Because like when he came to Houston, like it helped fully revitalize, just his mental wiring in terms of how he plays the game, how he approaches the game, from a self-appreciation standpoint. Because he said when he was in Europe, he should be really, really hard on himself because he couldn't stay healthy. So when you get out there, you press a little bit, and he knew like once the injuries started to pile up, he knew that okay, the team was starting to move on from him in that regard. And he said like the change really, really started in New York where he met like a therapist. So when he met that therapist helped kind of get his mind back on track. And he's carried some of that into Houston, and Houston took it to another level to now where he feels just a lot more free mentally. He could play free, and he's not worried about getting hurt and things of that nature. And it's allowed him to play his best ball. So it's really cool to see a guy, change the scenery, be able to finally start to tap into that athletic ability that we all knew that he had. I mean, when I played Madden all the time a few years back, I used to always try to draft Blake Cashman because his speed was a 90
He's
on
fast,
Madden.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. That's great background.
I had one more about the details and just the young talent there. Will Anderson was number 3 pick in the first round here for the Texans, and I think it took him a little while this season to start at least getting home, right? But a couple of sacks last week. How much of a factor can he be against the Jets offensive line that is a mess?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. They would not be doing Max Mitchell any favors if they leave him one-on-one with Will Anderson. So I don't anticipate them doing too much of that. But he could be a massive factor. I think what's helped him out a little bit more is the help of the secondary. Throughout the year, there was a lot of it was a revolving door because even like game 1, they didn't even have their full starting lineup in the secondary. They had their 3 cornerbacks, but their safeties. Jimmy Ward was out with a hip. Jalen Peachy only lasted a quarter before he punctured his lung. So that so it's been musical chairs in that aspect. But once the whole unit got healthy, that's kind of they've been playing better on the back end, which has forced quarterbacks to hold the ball just a tick longer. So where he's been able to get home lately. It's not a coincidence that once Stingley comes back and once Steven Nelson was healthy and he actually was been healthy the whole year. But when Jimmy Ward came back and Jalen Peachy was starting to come into his own, and Tyree Thomas, who had a broken hand, and he missed a few games. While they were all there, it's not a coincidence that now the sacks are starting to come because they're able to hold just a tick longer in coverage and force a quarterback to hold the ball just a tick longer, which is allowing them to get there because he was getting close. But I mean, there was one play against the Saints. He had Derek Carr wrapped around and taking him to the floor, and Derek Carr just dumped it to Taysom Hill. So it's just funny that like a few plays could have completely changed the narrative from earlier in the year if he was able to get those guys down if they just didn't get the ball out.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that kind of with Quinnen right now because he's been dominant, but he hasn't been able to get like the sack. So I think, as you know, fans like always focus on the sack number. So
absolutely.
Then we gotta let you go. But the last question I got for you is the real reason you moved all the way to Houston, Texas, to get away from Connor Hughes. Is that the real reason?
Well, I mean, I still text him from time to time. Like I was poking fun at him for the Tim Boyle stuff, because I was just like, bro, like Tim Boyle stinks. Like, why are you asking for Tim Boyle to play? And he was like, they need a spark. I'm like, if the spark is Tim Boyle, then the battery is just dead at that point. Shout out to Tim Boyle for being able to finesse an NFL career because, like we always talk about Kirk Cousins being like, Hall of Fame ski mask. No. Tim Boyle is the standard for being able to steal money because for you to have more interceptions than touchdowns since high school and you're still in the NFL cashing checks, shout out to Tim Boyle.
Him and Chase Daniel, they both have had nice careers.
At least Chase was good in college. Chase was good in college.
Touche. All right, man.
Chase
thanks for coming on, DJ.
The Athletic Football Show too, Zach. So we're
true. Yeah,
Chase.
We love Chase Daniel. Yeah.
We love Chase Daniel. All right, DJ. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure you'll. I hope you have a good time coming back to New York. A Columbia guy, so I know it's home. So enjoy the trip, and hopefully the game lives up to the trip. I guess. Right?
We'll see about the game, but the trip should be fun. Side note: I don't really talk too much to my Columbia classmates. Only a couple, but yeah. So.
All right, that was DJ Bien-Aime joining us. Check out all his great stuff on ESPN as he covers the Texans, getting you ready for this game coming up this weekend. Should we do picks, Zach?
Yeah, we can do picks. Wait, before we do, we did want to talk about it briefly. Maybe we should go too deep into it, but Jamal Adams stuff that has transpired, I feel like it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I said I wanted to talk about it, and then in my head I was like, maybe we shouldn't even.
I don't know. We don't need to go. We don't need to go in depth.
Let's do, yeah.
I just want to state for the record, it's insane the way he's handled it. So I'm not going to say I didn't cover him when he was here. I've heard things about him, but I think he kind of showed his character over this last week and a half or so. And I will say it's just to share a funny story about this. So when the initial Jamal stuff happened, it was obviously insane. We were texting about it. We were all getting fired up. If you guys don't know, I'd say just if you're going to say it, Connor just responded to a tweet of him giving up a touchdown and with yikes, and he responded by posting a photo of Connor's wife with the same word, which, cool guy doing that. But so when that happened, I felt so bad for Connor that I sent something to his house, a funny gift to his house, and it didn't arrive until a couple of days ago when Jamal addressed the quote, the tweets, and he doubled down and said, when they go low, I go lower, which is a very interesting thing to say publicly. And the gift that I sent Connor, it's a bag of dicks. It's a bag of gummy dicks that I sent to Connor's house. It didn't have. I thought I wrote a note on there, but I guess it didn't have. He texted the group that word. And he's like, "Did you guys send this?" I was like, "That was me." And I think Connor is enjoying the gummies. But I thought it was hilarious, and I wanted to send that to somebody for a long time because that's an insult I use at people a lot. Anyway, that's the main reason why I wanted to bring up the Jamal Adams thing, because I wanted to share that I was proud of that.
I want to say that I'm proud of Jets Twitter and Jets fan base.
Yeah.
Because I know people have a love-hate relationship with Connor. We mostly love Connor, but obviously we're team Connor and the Cono on this whole thing. But to see something handled so badly by a player, and then to see the entire Twitterverse just
not even just Twitter, by the way, but
and really the coolest thing about that, I thought, was that it allowed Connor to not have to respond. Because I think that was important too.
Yeah.
He took the high road. He did the first thing, and it was really neat. So thank you all for listening. I'm sure you probably got in there. That was people that I never thought would even notice this was a story who were jumping on and piling on, and it was pretty cool to see a guy that we're very fond of get defended the way that he did. So that was cool.
Yeah, the craziest thing is, and we don't need to go too deep into this, but Connor's tweeted critical things about guys that were way worse than that.
It's part of the job. That's the thing. It's the job.
You can't be that thin-skinned if you're going to be a star in the NFL. I'm sorry. So okay, we can move on. But I just wanted to say, obviously, you guys know I support Connor, even though I hate his guts. I do support him here. Only I can hate his guts, nobody else can. That's my rule.
My wife is off of Twitter these days, and she almost reactivated her account because she just wanted to defend Bree and send love and all that. And I said, it's okay. It's all right. Just
Taylor just had a great comment. He said, for the first time in his life, Connor did not talk.
Yeah, and it was the right move. It was the right, and usually him talking is the right move because that's how he's gotten to where he is. And this time he did it.
Yes, touche.
So yeah, nice comment there. All right, let's get into the picks. Let me fire it up here. We're going to start with the standings as we all do. The picks brought to you by BetMGM. They are they are the ones that
people are people going to see your login info?
No, it's going to be cut up. You can see who I am, but that's fine. All right, that didn't go well. We'll let that on the audio version. We have a singular leader, Zach.
Yeah.
New Nijmegen Jets. 100 picks for the year out of 177, which I'm going to say
not bad.
That's pretty darn good. 56.50%. They've won 2 weeks over the course of the year. So it feels like if that holds, maybe we try to get them on the show next week because we're running out of things to talk about on the second episode of these shows. So that seems like a good move. Sadly for me, I have fallen below 500 for the first time this season. I had a brutal week. Back to 48%. You're hanging in there. 87. You're under 500 too. You're at 49.15, but you're ahead of me on the percentage. So that's where we stand. Let's go to this week's games. There's a couple of good ones, not like one of the best weeks of the year, but a couple of good ones as far as the list goes. The Fighting Michael Duns taking on Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is back at practice, but I'm not sure exactly how effective he's going to be. The best thing about us sharing this thing, by the way, is that you have the automated ads. If you're watching on YouTube, there's the automated ads, and you can see what Tim's been up to lately.
Yeah.
Ordering Christmas cards.
At least it's not anything embarrassing. At least it's not anything embarrassing, though.
Yeah, with the Shutterfly ad on the side. We are. I guess they're an unofficial sponsor now.
There you go.
But Cleveland -3.5 at home against Jacksonville. I just think Lawrence is going to struggle even if he's able to go at it. And I think that with that Cleveland defense, they get the win. They need one.
Yeah. There's some interesting lines this week, I'll say. I think the Lions only being favored by 3.5 feels like a typo to me. That's one of those like the Eagles game last week where it's like, why are the Eagles underdogs against the 49ers? And then okay, that's why. And then I have my eye on that one because for whatever reason Vegas is genius with this stuff sometimes, and the Lions have been one of the best teams in the league. So that was interesting to me. Let's see, Colts Bengals is interesting. Jake Browning had a great game last week. Gardner Minshew's looked really good. I think that might actually be a pretty good game. Let's see here. I think that Chiefs Bills. We didn't talk about it, but the Sean McDermott drama kind of overshadowed our Zach Wilson drama since yesterday because Ty Dunn from who has his website golongtd, I believe.com, wrote a 20,000 word opus on all the problems of Buffalo, and one of the anecdotes, if you don't know, was in a team meeting in 2019. As a way to illustrate what good communication looks like, he referenced the 9/11 terrorist, which, interesting choice. I'm surprised it took this long to get out, honestly.
You know what? The fact that it took this long to get out is going to help him, because if that came out at the moment, you wonder if he survives that.
Yeah, because I saw Tim Graham from The Athletic was actually tweeting that, apparently in the building they all knew about that already, and they kind of even joke about it now because it was so insane. But it's the sign of a team like the Jets as you see stuff like this as it's coming out. That's where turmoil comes in. And so if the Bills lose to the Chiefs, which is very conceivable, they have a losing record. Their playoffs hopes are not dying, but definitely falling. And if the Bills don't make the playoffs, I get everybody's been reporting that McDermott's safe, but it's again that's not planning for the worst case scenario. And right now they have a lot of bad publicity. He fired Ken Dorsey, made him the scapegoat, all that stuff. So anyway, that was just a little sidetrack there.
And just big picture, we came into this year and we thought the AFC East was going to be just loaded, right? The Jets with Aaron Rodgers, the Dolphins were on the rise, the Bills were Super Bowl contenders, the Patriots were the Patriots. The Patriots are one of the worst teams in the league. The Jets now are one of the worst teams in the league, and the Bills could be under 500 at the end of the week. It's just crazy how that division has played out.
Yeah.
The
thought
biggest
the
game of the
AFC
week.
was gonna be
Go
one of
ahead.
the best,
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, I thought the AFC was going to be one of the best too. So
Yeah. The biggest game of the week, Philadelphia at Dallas. And what a gauntlet for the Eagles to
Yeah,
come out of that
seriously.
game last week where they got blitzed by the 49ers. And now they go on the road to Dallas. They lose this game and they're underdogs. They're suddenly not even in first place in the division after looking like the clear-cut number one seed in the NFC 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have had some like bad signs all year, but they kept winning. So I thought it was always ridiculous that people were even doubting them. I think Jalen Hurts is probably banged up. There's like whole controversy about their David Carr saying they should bench him for Mariota or whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is a bad timing for this game because you would have loved like a get right game this week. So I am a little concerned about it. I think I picked the Eagles. I don't do that with confidence right now. The Eagles ultimately are just like more talented than most teams, though. So that's why I think they're in it every week. But I guess we should pick the Jets game. I think it might not be a great game. I know that's not controversial, but like I think it might be like kind of ugly. Like I think 3 points is kind of generous. Isn't that what it is?
3.5, man. I've never seen
3.5.
so many 3.5 point spreads in one single week.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think the Jets lose by more than 3.5 is what I'll say. So
I took the Texans as well. I think I've gone against the Jets now for a decent run. It's just been
had good reason to, yeah.
By the way, I'm also already off on an 0-1 start to the week because that Patriots game last night.
Oh my God.
Was crazy. Bailey Zappi played one half and it was enough. And the Steelers are suddenly like they lost to the Cardinals and they lose to the Patriots, two of the worst 3 teams in the league. But that Patriots win is interesting because of how it impacts the draft and that game against the Jets late in the season. If Bailey Zappi continues to have a little magic, the Patriots could play themselves out of one of those top quarterbacks, which is exactly what you don't want to do if you're already having a miserable season.
So Jets fans should be happy with that if they want the Patriots to keep winning.
Yeah. You root for the Patriots, get them back in that mediocrity level, and then you never, it's the worst place to be in sports is just good enough not to get the top picks.
Totally.
So I think that does it for us. Anything else to add before the Texans come to town, Zach?
No, I will say, just to throw the hypothetical out there, like if they do somehow win this game, I do wonder if the noise around Rodgers starts getting loud again, because I do think if they'd won that Falcons game, we might be having a different conversation this week about when or if Rodgers comes back. Right now, they're at like a 0.1 chance to make the playoffs. So if Rodgers really wants to be like, hey, we technically still are in it, I could totally see that happening. But so I think it would require a win this week, though. Like if they lose this week, there's no way he comes back. So
right.
I still don't think he should, obviously. But
if they had won last week, it'd be 5-7, and then if they win this week, 6-7, and then suddenly they're tied with the Bills. The Bills lose. 6-7. Suddenly you do have hope, but unfortunately they didn't beat the Falcons.
Yeah,
and so I don't see. I know you can't change the 0.1 to a 0 until you're mathematically eliminated. So
exactly.
It's literally the worst chances you can have of making the playoffs until you're eliminated. So.
Yeah, well, I played around with the New York Times simulator or predictor or whatever, and I put it if they win the rest of their games, I think they still
9-8.
only be like
they don't make it. Right?
Yeah, they would still be like 12% or something like that. So
yeah, there's too many. It's not the right year. There are years when 9-8 will get you in the playoffs, but this is not that year in the AFC.
Yeah,
but I'd love to see Zach just go out there and play carefree football.
Yeah.
Just zip it around, make mistakes. I don't care if he, you know what? If Zach Wilson throws 3 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions, I'd be thrilled. Because that would be an exciting
absolutely.
Football game.
Yeah.
That's an exciting football game.
Absolutely. So, I agree.
All right, let's make that happen. We'll be back with the recap early next week. As always, we'll keep you updated on the exact time, and we will talk to everybody soon on the Can't Wait podcast.